Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. I'm down here at Darling Harbour on this Tuesday, and as you can see, it looks to be the beginning, the start of a magnificent Sydney summer's day. Not a breeze in the sky. The water is absolutely flat, and it's warm, and it looks to be an absolute cracker. For those who are not aware, this whole area, this whole precinct down here at Darling Harbour is going to undergo a massive development that's going to be managed and run by Mirvac, and I think it's going to be a $6 billion project down here. So this whole area is going to transform yet again. It transformed about 30 years ago, and now it's going to go into the next phase of transformation. So this whole area here that was vacant and was nothing 30 or 40 years ago, now has become a hub of activity and will continue to be a hub and be, I guess, a place that attracts tourists, visitors, locals and businesses alike. Anyway, today what I'd like to do is just continue along the tradition of Jim's 5am Club, where we go on a walk and talk, and we discuss a book summary. And today's book summary is entitled The Life-Changing Science of Detecting BS. The Life-Changing Science of Detecting Bullshit, by an author known as John V. Petrocelli. So this book is all about identifying and shutting down the BS that comes into our lives. And the author says that BS basically is defined as anything that disregards the obvious truth. So there are some obvious truths in our lives, in our world, things that are obvious to everybody, all and sundry, and yet the media, certain people, take it, put a spin on it, and morph it into something that it's not. And this book's all about identifying that BS and learning how to manage it and how to live with it. So the first key point to come from this author is basically trying to understand why people generally believe bullshit. And the author says it happens for one of three key reasons. People tend to believe things that are fanciful, that can't possibly be true, but they believe it because it aligns with their ideal view of the world. It aligns with their existing memories, things that they've picked up over the years, things, ideas, beliefs that they have inherited from their families, their friends, their siblings, their workmates, their culture, their church, the media, the social media. There can be lots and lots of different ways and different places and different sources that people pick up these memories or these slithers of reality, or their slithers of perceived reality. And the third way, or the third reason why people tend to believe BS, is because it's based on the biased info that they have loaded into their heads. So there are various reasons that can impact a person and can have a major sort of impact and moves them in a certain way. But people, even smart people, you know, we've seen now with some of the Bitcoin and some of the cryptocurrency collapses, that you've got really, really smart people being caught up in frauds, being caught up by charlatans who have absolutely no idea on how to run a business and yet have been able to fleece people, communities, the investment community, of billions of dollars that have just disappeared into nothingness. The other point that the author makes on this topic is that people believe BS for another reason, that they've heard it for the first time and they don't have a frame of reference, and hence they automatically accept it as being truth. You know, that happens to people when you're young, when you're growing and developing. You tend to be a lot more, I guess, naive and gullible, and you believe the things that you hear, not having the time or the ability, the capability to source and check the sources of information. People tend to take information at carte blanche and just believe it, and that in itself can be dangerous, according to what this author is saying. And the last reason that the author talks about here in terms of why people generally believe BS is that they rely too much on intuition and they over trust their ability to detect bullshit and become victims, fall victims. You know, sometimes, you know, if you over trust your intuition, then you can be manipulated and tricked and fooled, because the bullshit artists are the ones who can shape, can colour, can shade the rules and the lead up, the foreplay, to get you to the point, you know, to believe things even though they can't possibly be true. But you've been conned, I guess is the point, along the way by a methodical process. So the author then goes on to say that you're more susceptible to BS when you fail to acknowledge that your intuition isn't always right. If you let your guard down, you will fall victim to BS every time. Because the author here says it's important to do a check on the facts, and not to accept what people say without doing your own audit, your own review on whether or not it passes the pub test, whether or not it passes the sniff test. And today, with so much social media about, we have tremendous sources that we can use to baseline and benchmark the things that we hear, the things that we believe. But the most important thing of all is to have a reliable source, because one of the problems that people have, one of the problems that a lot of social media influencers have, is they just take whatever they see, whatever they read, whatever they hear on social media and assume that it is factual, assume that it is true, and they pass it on, they promulgate it. And because they're influencers, people don't quite understand that even featherweight opinions can influence people, because people are trusting. People will say, well, because so-and-so said it, it must be true, but it's not always the case. We need to understand that in this world, everybody, of course, is entitled to their opinion, but not everybody's opinion is valid. There are opinions that are featherweight, and there are opinions that are heavyweight. So it's up to us to try and decipher, to try and figure out who has a featherweight opinion and who has a heavyweight opinion. So what else can we learn? So don't rely too heavily on intuition, and be a fact checker wherever you can, I guess, is the key point that comes from this author. The next point that comes from this book summary, is where the author says that when we're not expected to share an opinion, we're less likely to BS. So the people who tend to become the BSers are the ones who are invited to share their opinion. So I guess one of the key messages from this book is that, don't invite people to share opinions too often, or when it's not requested or not required, because people will make stuff up just to sound smart. People will make stuff up just to initiate or be part of a conversation. People will engage and employ fantasy, will employ half-assed facts just to be popular, just to fit in, just to belong. So we've got to understand that it's not their fault. Sometimes it's our fault for engaging them, wanting to listen to them, and giving them airtime and airspace, which, as I say, opens the door for them to make stuff up just to make life for them a little bit more interesting. So people tend to BS when they are asked for their opinion on a given subject, because we tend to BS when talking to people who have less perceived skill in a particular discipline or a field. So once again, people are always judging us, people are always trying to figure us out. And what the author here is saying is that if somebody thinks or somebody perceives that you don't have a particular skill in a particular area, what it does is it brings out the tiger in them, and they automatically think that because they know a little bit more on a particular topic than what you do, that they automatically become the expert, and then whatever they say becomes truth. So once again, the author here warns us to be careful of people who think that they know a little bit more than you do on a particular topic, because what they will do is that they will extend, they will draw a long bow, and all of a sudden try to become the oracle on a particular topic, even though they have no particular idea on what they are saying, and they can lead you down the garden path and cause quite a bit of damage, especially when it comes to investment advice, relationship advice, or work advice. So be careful, I guess, is the key message, and to be selective with who you listen to and the information that you act upon. So sometimes people are pressured into BS. You know, when you're in a meeting, when you're at work, when you're with people sometimes through peer pressure, pressure the people around them to force opinions or to force positions, and that in itself can create an environment that will allow BS to flourish and to blossom. So the author says that people these days are more inclined to BS because we are so connected and we have a platform to voice opinion and to bluff. And that can be said about social media. It can be said about the new world that we live in. Because we live in a digitized world, we are constantly connected and we constantly have a platform. And because there is so much information being shared at any particular time, people don't have the time to decipher what is true, what is not true. So what it does is it allows people just to blurt out things, and those things to become fact in people's minds. And because people make accusations, people say things about people that before you know it, it becomes fact for most people. And once your reputation is tarnished, once people form a particular view, a particular popular view about you, then it's pretty hard from that point onwards to change that view, because what they say is it takes 10 positive experiences to be able to neutralize a negative experience, or to neutralize a negative thing that is said that has impacted someone's reputation. So the last point that comes from this author on the topic of BS is that we need to test assumptions and we need to engage our critical thinking and never drop our guard and never take people's word, people's opinions as gospel. To always think about what they're saying, to try and ask yourself, is it true? And to compare and contrast, to baseline and benchmark the things that people say with your own fact base, and to give people a chance and to, be a detective of truth. So when it comes to truth, at the end of the day, we all have a different version of the truth. And the reason for that is that we've all had a different past. We all have a different present. I am here, you are somewhere else. And even if you are here, you're going to be having a different perceived experience where you're picking up consciously and subconsciously different slithers of reality, and we're all going to have most certainly a different future. And it's these experiences, these slithers of reality that we pick up along the way, be they right, be they wrong, are going to compound and blend together and form our worldview. And it's that worldview that will allow us to interpret what is going on, how it impacts us, how it impacts the world. And that worldview that we have will shape our destiny. It will draw us or it will repel us depending on how we interpret it. So it's our perception on what is happening rather than what is happening, because things that are vividly imagined can be believed as being truth to many people. And once again, just because the media has said it, or just because lots of people have said the same thing, it doesn't make it the truth. It just means that more people are being sucked into misinformation, or worse still, disinformation. We saw during the pandemic how information can be manipulated by the anti-vaxxers, and we're seeing the pain and suffering that China is now facing with, I think, almost, is it almost 100 million people suffering COVID. And the reason for that is that they didn't vaccinate. They didn't follow the science. They didn't follow and actualize what they needed to do to protect themselves. So now their communities, their economies, and their health is under stress. Anyway, I think that's enough for today, but thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5am Club from down here in Darling Harbour. And I look forward to coming to you again from a different place, from a different location. We will go through further book summaries where we're able to compare and contrast and use OPE, other people's experiences, to help us form an opinion, form a view, and hopefully lead us away from the BS in the world and to lead us into a truth that will help us grow and develop, that will serve us and make us better people. Anyway, take care, wishing you all the best, and we'll chat again. Bye for now.